Joining me is Steve Fenton, who's the technical content creator at Octopus Deploy. He's the person that you'll see a lot of blog posts from, books, which is why we're talking today, and other things as well. Steve, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
You have written a book entitled Exploring Octopus Deploy, a journey to simplify deployments and operations tasks with powerful automation. That's quite an ambitious title.
Well, I thought we ought to go for ambitious at this stage in things.
That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you've made you've made the book available for free. It's available as a download from a PDF. Of course, you can choose to, if you wish, to purchase a paperback from Amazon as well. So I'd like to start by asking you what motivated you, or what inspired you to write the book.
So I actually wrote a first edition of this back in 2015, and I was just an Octopus user. We'd been looking for deployment automation tools and trying out lots of different things. And someone mentioned Octopus to me. I downloaded a free trial and I absolutely loved it. And so in the end, I wrote a book about it to tell other people about it because I loved it so much. And as chance would have it, I ended up joining Octopus Deploy. And I thought, well, the book's really out of date. 2015 is a long time ago, and Octopus has changed dramatically over the course of that time. And I thought it really needed an update so that we could actually share the features. Um, this particular edition was really inspired by when I joined Octopus. I learned about all this stuff that I didn't even know existed. We'd used deployments and we'd used runbooks. Runbooks was a new discovery for us. We'd started using those, and it was like, wow, it's like having a second product for free. And then when I joined Octopus, I found out about spaces and tenants and all of these other things that would have been super useful to me because I was doing things like hacking my way around, not knowing that there was a feature that did what I wanted. So this is really inspired by like, let's tell everyone about these features. So if they're using Octopus, they can find that there are these nice, easy ways of solving a whole bunch of problems.
So in the book, you claim, I say claim, but how automation brings more than just speed. Isn't that the truth? What excellent deployments look like. I'd like to ask you about that. What makes Operation Runbooks great? An overview of Octopus Deploy features, concepts, and terms. I liken that to understanding the taxonomy or the lexicon of Octopus, the fundamental stuff. You can't really talk about deployments in Octopus until you understand some of the core concepts. And then finally, how you can use Octopus to level up your deployments and runbooks. I'd like to ask you a little bit about this one. What excellent deployments look like? And I know that it's probably incidental, but I'm hoping it's intentional. You recently wrote a blog post for the new stack where you talked a little bit about some deployment patterns. Was that also intentional, or is that related to what you're referring to in this bullet point?
So I suppose like it's all related really because being around so many people who deeply understand deployments has allowed me to learn so much. Like I thought I was doing deployments really well. What I was actually doing was like a rolling deployment where you knock a server out of balance, you update it, you bring it back in. And now that I actually understand things more deeply, I realized that some of the problems we were having, like the flip-flopping of users between two different versions, which can be a bit strange, they can be solved as part of the deployment process. So Octopus has got like a really strong view, like the Octopus way of doing deployments. And the product really supports that way. And it's kind of the learning really from all of the folks at Octopus has kind of like made me realize what like actually excellent deployments look like. Not just excellent for development teams, which is ours was fine for a development team because it was automated and it was brilliant, but also for users, like making sure they don't flip between two versions of like a web app, or making sure that they don't see a page saying we're not available, come back later, which still happens like in 2024. Like I found that on e-commerce sites where they kind of get taken down so prices can be updated overnight. And so, yeah, it's actually really like that deep knowledge from having so many people in the same space.
Did you ever find yourself struggling with deployments before joining Octopus, and then you stumbled upon this tool, and then is that how you got started?
Yeah, so my first experience of deployments was like 5 p.m. we started getting ready, taking database backups, and we had a whole crew of people that would gather round. We weren't allowed to touch the production servers, so there was a checklist, and we stood over the shoulder of the ops team as they went through ticking off things on the checklist. And then around about 8 p.m., when testing of that version was about to start, that's when we started troubleshooting. And usually around 6 a.m. the next day, things were just ready in time so that when people came into the office in the morning, they could use the software. But it had been like a series of crises and panics, and that was what deployments were like. And it was like there was free pizza, there was lots of sitting around, and there was lots of like stress. So that's why I didn't want to do it that way anymore, and I was looking for something which ideally the free pizza would remain, but all of the rest would be eliminated.
Jumping back to the book briefly, you can see the structure here. So part 1, thinking about automation, deployments, and runbooks. So I would imagine this is a brief introduction. Well, why don't you explain the structure here? We start with part 1, and then we go over to part 2, features and use cases. There's a few pages in here. So describe the structure for us.
Yeah, so it's up to the reader whether they want to kind of do everything in order. Part 1 is talking more about the kind of abstract concepts like deployments and automation and runbooks in general. Okay. And we also talk about like why the product was created and like how it helps with that. So it kind of goes into things like how this relates to continuous delivery, as an example. Right. The second part is where we zoom in on Octopus specifically, and we go through and look at like a whole host of things that are there and available that people who have been using Octopus for a long time like may not be using these, and they might go, actually that would be quite useful. Let's have a look into using that feature. So runbooks is a really good example for me, because runbooks we were still accessing infrastructure either by logging into old school infrastructure like virtual machines, or you're clicking around in like a Azure portal to clear a cache so your test team can retry something without the cache getting in the way. And we did a whole exercise to see if we could never log into any of those things, whether it's actual infrastructure or management portals. Can we actually set up a situation where we don't do any of that? And we used runbooks to solve the problem, because we could create these automated runbooks and click a button and make the thing happen. And then we realized we could give that button to the test team. So we could give them permissions to run that just on the test environment, and they could now unblock themselves. So we stopped processing tickets for the test team needing us to do like common exercises that they do as part of testing, like recreating test data or clearing a cache, those kinds of things. Yeah. And we didn't need to have privileged access to everything. So we could then switch over to like temporary elevation when we really needed to use something, instead of like, I need to log into something every day, right? So I might as well just keep access. So it made things more secure, but also self-service.
Looking from the outside, I think a lot of people might look at Octopus and say, I can write a script for that. So why would I use Octopus? What would be your answer for that?
Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of reasons. Firstly, having, even if you were using a script, having it in Octopus means you can give it to people with role-based access. So that script now doesn't require me to have privileged access. Like I don't need access to kube control to run a script. I can have very limited access to do one operation at the click of a button, instead of access to like an actual terminal where I could run any script. And if I copy and paste it and miss off an important flag, I might do something I didn't expect, or I might have the wrong thing on my clipboard when I paste it in, and something terrible can happen. Like we've all seen those things. The old one on virtual machines was you'd very carefully do the operation, and then you'd go in to log off, but accidentally shut down the machine. And so you'd take the machine offline because you accidentally shut it down instead of logging off. So it makes it much safer, but it also means I can give those operations to people who you probably wouldn't want them to be running scripts, because they're not programmers. Like if you've got a test team, or even your product owner might want to run an operation, then they may not be comfortable like having privileged access, logging into those machines, running the operation. And then on top of that, you get the audit trail, so you can see who kicked off those operations, and you've got the complete history. So like it makes, like, I hate audits because they're always like a stress, but when you can just show how your tool audits the activity and controls access, auditors are actually excited and are on your side, and like all of that compliance story becomes completely transformed. Instead of it being this like stressful exercise, it's just interesting because they're like, oh, how did you do that? Tell me more.
So the book is Exploring Octopus Deploy. Just to wrap up our interview here, is there anything that you'd like to share with readers about Octopus Deploy? Exploring Octopus Deploy itself, or the future of deployment automation?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I changed for this edition. One was obviously Kubernetes is now a really common deployment target, whereas back in
Yep.
2015 it wasn't. So I've changed there's only one step-by-step example in here where it's like click these buttons to get a result, and that's now a Kubernetes example because it's going to be such a common use case. And other than that, I would say it's worth, if you are an Octopus user, it's worth flicking through and just like skimming those features. I did this when I first learned C#, right? I flicked through just to see what all of the things were that were available. And it wasn't that I then immediately put them all into practice, but what will start happening is you'll start recognizing situations where there are features that will help you to do deployments even more well. So yeah, it's like you can skim it, and just knowing that this thing called tenants exists, knowing that this insights feature exists, is enough that you'll go, oh, I actually already have this thing at my fingertips that I could use right now. So yeah, hopefully you'll find new things that will bring you even more useful tools for your toolbox.
Awesome. Hey, Steve, thanks a lot. If you want to you want to check out the book, you can download it now. It's available as a PDF, as well as you can purchase it from Amazon US, UK, and Australia. Steve, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.